about something important. Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
All right, this is going to be our 2023 NFL first round draft kind of preview show. I'm not going to give you a mock draft or anything like that, but I am going to take you position by position, go over a little bit of the Cleveland Browns needs, a little bit of the Pittsburgh Steelers needs, talk a little Ohio State, little quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, stuff like that. So let's get into it and let's take a look at what the first round looks like thus far. So a lot of trades have already happened. Carolina moves all the way up to the number 1 pick, trading with Chicago. You have the Jets and Green Bay flip-flopping first rounders. A few other moves in there. So you can see the draft positions, and this year is a little unique. Only 31 first round picks. Miami was actually stripped of its first round pick for tampering and some other rule breaking violations, I guess you could say, with the Tom Brady stuff a few years back. So teams without a first round pick this year are the Rams, the Browns, the 49ers, and the Dolphins, which means you could basically say the Pittsburgh Steelers have 2 picks in the first round because they're going to be picking 32nd overall. That will still happen. That will be the first pick on Friday. So the Eagles have 2 first rounders. The Seattle Seahawks have 2 first rounders. The Houston Texans have 2 first rounders. And Detroit has 2 first rounders. So some teams really trying to hit the jackpot early on in this first round, and a lot of really, really good talent, as always, in these first round, but a pretty deep draft overall, especially at certain positions, which we'll get into here in just a second. So, being the 330 Sports Show, we're going to focus a little bit more on the Browns, a little bit on the Steelers as we go forward. So the Browns in this 2023 draft have 8 overall selections. I do not expect them to take 8 players in this draft. I expect them to take maybe 5 or 6, maybe package some of those picks and move up, or trade some of those picks and get a better pick into next year. So looking at the Browns needs, defensive line is still an issue. You could need some depth at that position, possibly a third defensive end, maybe some more defensive tackle help, some linebacker help, and offensive skill players. And basically, I'm going to open that up to the whole gamut. So that could be wide receiver, running back, as a succession plan, possibly to Nick Chubb, and maybe to help out Jerome Ford, who hasn't really seen the field a whole lot, and possibly even tight end. So the Browns definitely have some moves to make. I think possibly even a safety could be in the Browns' plans in this draft. So their first 2 rounds they will not be picking. So the first round was used in the Deshaun Watson trade. The second round pick was used to acquire Elijah Moore, but basically they moved back 32 spots to acquire Elijah Moore and get the New York Jets 3rd rounder. So the Browns have 2 3rd rounders, 2 4th rounders, 2 5th rounders, a 6th and a 7th. And that 3rd rounder, number 98 overall, is compensation for the Minnesota Vikings hiring their GM from the Browns. Now, we look back at all the Browns first rounders since 99. I am not going to go through this list. However, I will highlight some of the, solid to home run picks the Browns have had. Joe Thomas, obviously probably the best pick they have made. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer, will go into the Hall of Fame this coming season. Alex Mack was a nice pick. Joe Hayden, Myles Garrett was obviously a great pick. I think the David Njoku pick was great. Denzel Ward, solid pick. Greg Newsome so far looks to be a hit. Jed Wills, still out on him, but we could probably do a draft of the worst Browns first round picks since they came back. But let's focus on the positive here. But looking back at recent drafts, here's the Andrew Berry draft. So he took over being the main general manager in 2020. That was obviously the COVID year, a little bit of a strange year with not being able to bring guys in, not seeing a whole lot of tape on a lot of players. But Jed Wills they used for that first overall selection at number 10. Grant Delpit seems to be a pretty good selection. They really nailed the Donovan Peoples-Jones pick in the 6th round. So they're, the jury is still out on a few of these players. Harrison Bryant, Jordan Elliott, Nick Harris is still around. So we shall see. In his second year, 2021, Greg Newsome, I believe, is going to be a really solid pick. JOK, if he could stay healthy, I believe that's a home run there. Anthony Schwartz, we're going to just stop there. But the rest of that draft does not look too good, but you got to nail those top picks. And I think he did that with the Greg Newsome and JOK pick. The rest of them, we shall see. Last year, Martin Emerson nailed that pick. First, got him at 68 overall and brings him in, and we shall see. Alex Wright, kind of a developmental player. The Browns use a lot of their draft picks as these, kind of pipeline, kind of a minor league system to, work these guys in, but also develop them behind some veterans. David Bell, jury's still out on him, but seems to be a solid wide receiver. Perion Winfrey, we'll see. They may cut him, they can keep him, but we'll see. Cade York, Jerome Ford, hopefully are two picks that work out. Michael Woods, unfortunately, tears his ACL in offseason workouts this year. Isaiah Thomas could be a good pick, and Dawson Deaton coming back from injury could give you some depth at that offensive line. So those are last year's 2022 picks. So usually you got to give these guys 3 years. And, so far, DPJ, Grant Delpit look to have, hit, and Newsome and JOK, we hope, are going to be hits. And hopefully a couple of these other guys can step up and make some, impacts on the field this coming season. All right, let's turn the page to the Browns' rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who overall do a really nice job in the draft and just are a well-run organization, as much as I hate to say that. But the Steelers will have 7 picks in this draft. They have the number 17 overall pick. And as I mentioned earlier, they really have 2 first-round selections. Number 32 overall usually is the last pick of the first round. However, it will be the first pick of the second round. They get that pick from Chicago in the trade for the wide receiver out of Notre Dame last year. They also have the 49th selection, so they have 3 picks within the top 50. It's pretty good there. Round 3, they have number 80, then 120 in round 4, and then they have 2 7th-round picks, 234 and 241 overall. So the needs for Pittsburgh Steelers, based on hearing some stuff from their fans, looking at some of their their different blogs and whatnot, linebacker, offensive tackle, and this is up for debate depending on who you talk to. Defensive tackle, Cam Hayward's getting up there in age. Cornerback, you lose Cam Sutton. Wide receiver is always an issue with, they got some good ones, but, wide receiver depth is a need for the Steelers there. So that is a look real quick at the Steelers draft needs, and we'll get into some of the potential players they could select here in the first round. We're also going to talk a little bit about some Buckeyes in the first round of the draft here and who could be drafted overall. So this is a graphic from 24/7 Sports. Since the year 2000, so going back the last 23 years, Ohio State has the most players selected in the NFL draft with 157 overall. That's 13 more than Alabama. And they have 34 first rounders overall, which is second behind Alabama. Alabama has 39 overall. Ohio State has 34 overall. Miami has 32 overall. No other team is in the 30s. So pretty impressive stuff there by the Buckeyes and their NFL factory. So let's get into some of the players here, and let's start with the case for number one. So Bryce Young, by all accounts, it seems to be reported that he will be a Carolina Panther. I am still in the mindset, and I'm recording this on Monday night before the draft. So believe me, a lot of things can change. However, I'm assuming Bryce Young is the number one pick going to Carolina. I still think CJ Stroud could be the number one overall pick based on previous draft history and the type of quarterback Carolina head coach Frank Reich has selected in the past. So, both players 21 years old. Bryce Young with a couple more starts, 27 to CJ Stroud's 25. Both played at big-time schools. The passing numbers are very comparable. 66% for CJ Stroud, 64.5 for Bryce Young. 41 touchdowns for Stroud compared to 6 interceptions. Bryce Young, 32 touchdowns to 5 picks. Bryce Young, probably the better athlete overall, can scramble, get out of the pocket, but both of these guys have, some major IQ points, I guess you could say. Both of these guys are very cerebral players. And there's been some reports about CJ Stroud not doing well on a certain test, but there's a lot of smoke this week, and that could be just a bunch of banter to put out there that a team puts out to maybe get their guy at a better value. So Stroud and Bryce Young, the case for number one, in my opinion. But if I had to put money on it, I'm going to say Bryce Young. But if you're giving me really long odds, I'm taking CJ Stroud. I just think that could be a really nice hit. And by all accounts, both of these guys are great guys off the field and great leaders on the football field. So hopefully for both of them, they work out for whichever franchise they land at. So let's look at the rest of the quarterbacks. I'm just going to give you the top 5 here. I think 5 of these guys could go in the first round. I'm going to say 4 go in the first round. So I'm going to say CJ Stroud. I'll say Bryce Young number 1, CJ Stroud definitely top 5. Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, all these guys are going to go top 10 in my opinion. Hendon Hooker is a wild card. I think a team could trade back into the first round and get him possibly late. I am going to say he slips to the second round, though. Had an ACL tear late in the season. So a team could theoretically trade up, take him in the first round, and get that 5th year option and kind of, put him, on layaway, I guess you could say, for a year until he is healthy. So how many quarterbacks will be drafted overall? That's a tough thing to say right now, but I'm going to say 4 quarterbacks go in the first round, and I really think all 4 of those guys go in the top 10. I want to say Oakland. Vegas needs a quarterback. Carolina's taking a quarterback. Houston needs a quarterback. A few more guys. Seattle, you could see taking a quarterback. So there's a lot of draft needy or quarterback needy teams early on in this draft. So we'll take a look at that here more in just a little bit. Let's go into some more prospects here. Wide receiver. So Quentin Johnson, Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, Addison and Butte from LSU are arguably the top 5 guys. I think, and not a homer pick, Jackson Smith-Njigba is the best receiver in this draft. Does that mean he will be the first wide receiver taken? Not necessarily, but you look at the pedigree of Ohio State receivers with, just look at recent trends with, you had the offensive rookie of the year last year. You have so many guys in the NFL right now from Columbus, from wearing the scarlet and gray, that are just killing it. So whether it's Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And this isn't just a recent trend. This is a 20-year trend with wide receivers from the Buckeyes. But, other guys to watch, especially early on in the second and third round, Josh Downs could go. Jalen Hyatt is a big-time deep threat. Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati. A guy, if he slips to the Cleveland Browns late, Marvin Mims or Nathaniel Dell, both big-time receivers, could be nice fits. Also, Parker Washington, Jaden Reed from Michigan State, and Rashee Rice from SMU. Those are 10 of the top prospects at the wide receiver this position this year. And don't be surprised if if a guy like a Marvin Mims or Nathaniel Dell is there and they call him Tank Dell from Houston. If one of those guys are around in the late second round or early third round, don't be surprised if the Browns trade up and grab one of those guys. Running back, another skill position of need for Cleveland, but Bijan Robinson is the first running back off the board. I think that's a no-doubter. Do I think he will go in the top 10? I don't, but I see him going in the top 20 for sure. Jahmyr Gibbs is the other guy that I could see going in the first round. I'm going to say Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs both go in the first round. And then I think you'll see kind of a run on running backs in the second and third round. Rashawn Johnson, also from Texas, Bijan Robinson's backup. So not a whole lot of tread on the tires, but he can do a whole lot, a little bit bigger back. Devin Achane from Texas A&M. Tank Bigsby, one of the best names in the draft. And Zach Charbonnet, former Michigan running back from UCLA, could be some of the names you hear go early. Other guys to watch: Eric Gray, Sean Tucker, Dwayne McBride, and Kenny McIntosh of Georgia. So I would not be surprised. Another guy I did not put on this list is the Kansas State running back. So keep an eye on him. He's a big back that I think, it's got some shiftiness that the Browns may like in the third or fourth round there if some of those guys fall to them. Tight ends are a deep class. So Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta from Iowa, Luke Musgrave, Oregon State, Darnell Washington, the big tight end from Georgia. Some other names to watch: Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State, Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan, Josh Weil, Cincinnati, Brendan Strange, Penn State, and Cameron Latou from Alabama are some of the names to watch. But I could see 3 of these guys, most likely Kincaid and Mayer, going in the first round, but you could see maybe a Darnell Washington or a Laporta possibly getting drafted in the late first round with some of their size and attributes. The interior offensive line, you could argue Luke Whippler is the best player on the board here. The center from Ohio State, Osiris Torrance, Florida, John Michael Schmitz, Minnesota, Steve Avila, TCU, and Joe Topman, Wisconsin. You can't go wrong with the Wisconsin offensive lineman. Also, some other names out there: Andrew Voorhees, the Michigan center who transferred from Virginia, was one of the best players in the country at his position last year. Jared Patterson out of Notre Dame, Braden Daniels out of Utah, and Antonio Mafi from UCLA are some of the top players on the board for interior offensive linemen. Now, I think we're going to have a battle between Paris Johnson Jr. and Peter Skronsky out of Northwestern for the first tackle taken in this draft. Now, Paris Johnson Jr. is a true tackle, did play guard his sophomore year at Ohio State, but he is an elite left tackle. Peter Skronsky, not as big of a guy. He could slide into play guard, but will be in the draft as a tackle. So we'll see which one of those two guys goes first. DeJuan Jones, the big guy out of Ohio State, like a monster, 6'8", probably 375 pounds. Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma and Broderick Jones out of Georgia. Probably the first 5 guys off the board. Watch out for Cody Mosh, North Dakota State, Darnell Wright, Tennessee, Blake Freeland, BYU, and Jonah Monheim from USC. But offensive tackle is obviously a huge position, literally and figuratively, in the NFL. And I expect a Buckeye to go off the board first. Beware of him going to be Justin Fields' pocket protector with Chicago Bears. I could see him going as early as 9 overall. Now, one of the top positions outside of quarterback in this draft is defensive end. Will Anderson Jr. is a for sure top 5 pick. He could go as early as 2, in my opinion, and I actually think he is going to go number 2 to the Houston Texans. So Will Anderson, the top defensive end on the board. Tyree Wilson is a guy draft experts, I don't know who that is, but your Mel Kipers, your Todd McShays, love Tyree Wilson and expect him to go top 5. Miles Murphy out of Clemson, Tuli, I'm going to butcher this name, Tuipulotu, should go early. Will McDonald and some other guys. Nolan Smith suffered an injury last year for Georgia, but should be a name to watch in the first couple rounds. Isaiah Foskey, Keon White out of Georgia Tech, Mike Morris out of Michigan, and Zach Harrison out of Ohio State is a guy that should be around when the Browns pick late 3rd round, early 4th round. So could be a nice run stopper, guy that can play inside and outside. So we'll see what happens with that defensive end prospect. Defensive tackles, your big name on the board is Jalen Carter, and obviously has some legal trouble off the field. So we will see if that costs him some draft positioning. But I think Jalen Carter goes definitely top 10. I've heard some smoke that the Pittsburgh Steelers are very interested in trading up for him. So watch out for that. Kalijah Cansey from Pittsburgh should go, at the latest in the 2nd round, early 2nd round, I think, but could be a late 1st rounder. Brian Breesy out of Clemson, Mozzie Smith from Michigan, Zach Pickens from South Carolina, some other guys to watch. Keanu Benton from Wisconsin, and some other guys in there that could make a name for themselves. So we'll see that another position of need for the Cleveland Browns, as well as the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see what if either team takes any of these top 10 guys here at their position. Some very interesting linebackers in this draft. I personally like Jack Campbell the best in this draft from Iowa. I think he would be a great fit at just about any team. Deion Henley, Washington State. A lot of the draft guys really like him. Drew Sanders, out of Arkansas. Nick Herbig, I think, is a little bit of an undersized linebacker that would be a great fit for just about any team. Trenton Simpson is another one to watch out for. And you can see the other names there. A couple guys to watch that played at some big schools that I think have a pedigree to play some really, really good football. Henry To'oTo'o out of Alabama and Noah Sewell out of Oregon. His brother obviously was the offensive lineman that went really high in the draft 2 years ago. The top corners in the draft: Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois, Christian Gonzalez, Oregon, Cam Smith, South Carolina. I really like Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. Eli Ricks, has some questionable characteristics, but great athlete. Keely Ringo, great pedigree from Georgia. So a lot of really, really good corners in this draft. To watch out for Devontae Banks as well. I think he could be a first-round pick and really, really talented player from the Maryland Terrapins. And safeties is not as coveted a position as it used to be, but a lot of really, really good players still out there. Brian Branch from Alabama is kind of the ringleader here. Sidney Brown's a really good player out of Illinois. Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M. Jamie Robinson from Florida State. The guy I could see the Browns taking possibly in the 3rd or 4th round, Jordan Battle from Alabama. Just a really nice player there. Christopher Smith out of Georgia, another Illinois, Jartavis Martin. Ronnie Hickman, the Buckeye, could go 3rd or 4th or possibly 5th round. And a guy I wouldn't sleep on either is Jair Brown from Penn State. Penn State had a great secondary, and Jair Brown was one of the mainstays in that Nittany Lions secondary. So we made it through all those positions. Let's go through some of the Buckeyes I expect to get drafted. And we've talked about pretty much all of them. So CJ Stroud, definitely going in the top 5. I expect him to go no later than 4 to the Indianapolis Colts, or a team actually trades up for him. I'm going to say a team trades up for him. So that's what I'm going to go with in my predictions. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, should be the first receiver off the board. We'll see if a team like Zay Flowers or Quentin Johnson, based on size and stuff like that, but we'll see. I think Smith and Jigba has all the attributes you want. Harrison. So I'm just going to say Ohio State's going to have 4 players go in the first round. I'm going to say Stroud, Smith and Jigba, Paris Johnson Jr., and I think DeJuan Jones goes late in the first round to a team that needs an outside offensive tackle. I think Luke Whippler is a late 2nd round, early 3rd round pick. I think Zach Harrison is a late 3rd, early 4th round pick. I think Ronnie Hickman could be a late 4th round to late 5th round pick. So I'm going to say in that range. Cam Brown, I'm going to say he does get drafted, but I'm going to say he goes in the 7th round. And then I think the other possibilities that I have listed, Tanner McAllister, Mitch Rossi, Jerron Cage, and Teron Vincent, are all going to be undrafted preferred free agents, in my opinion. So I'm going to just wrap it up with my draft predictions for first round. So I'm going to say 4 quarterbacks are taken with Young, Stroud, Richardson, and Levis. I'm going to say 5 or more trades take place on Thursday night, which is the first round of the draft. I'm going to say the first 2 players drafted will be from Alabama, which is Bryce Young and Will Anderson Jr. I'm going to say 2 running backs are selected in the first round, Robinson and Gibbs. I'm also going to say a team will trade up to draft CJ Stroud in the top 5. Green Bay, which just made the trade for traded Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to say they're going to take a wide receiver in the first round. Just maybe a little bit of a spite pick. But I'm going to go with that. And like I just mentioned, I think 4 Buckeyes will go in round 1 with CJ Stroud, Paris Johnson Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba, and DeJuan Jones. So those are my not necessarily bold predictions, but those are my predictions for round 1 of the 2023 NFL Draft. Appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to follow us on the 330 Sports Shows, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all the social media stuff, so just check us out at 330 Sports Show, and also follow Youngstown Studio, which is at Youngstown Studio on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and then on Twitter it's at YTown Studio. You can look for all our podcasts on www.youngstownstudio.com or wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate you guys listening. I know you have a ton of choices, but we appreciate you listening, watching. Make sure to like, follow, share, all that good stuff, and we will talk to you soon.
Hello, Peter. What's happening? I'm going to need you to go ahead and come in tomorrow. So if you could be here around 9, that would be great.